Hi folks, John Dunn here, RPG freelancer, publisher behind Meliorvia. I'm up here at Immortals with Mikey.
What is up, John? What we got cooking on the menu today?
It's been a while, so I thought we'd dive back into some Cthulhu.
Was that a pun because the dude behind you is diving into a pit of death?
It might be. It might have been. We've talked about pulp adventures before. I don't know if folks want to dive back into some of our stuff talking about Hollow Earth, but you remember those, Mikey?
How could I not, for one? And for two, you've taught me a lot about pulp, and I don't know. I think it's just, at this point, a classic.
So those types of adventures where the heroes are, two-fisted and ready to overcome any kind of iconic foe, sounds like something that might fit well for punching cultists and taking down, stopping their nefarious plans to summon ancient dark entities from beyond the pale.
I'm intrigued already.
That doesn't always fit real well with Call of Cthulhu as we usually know it, because when you're dealing with cosmic horror, the characters don't really do real well. These extra-dimensional entities are so vastly more powerful that your characters don't become more powerful over time, but instead start to go insane, start to acquire personality flaws, start to have to deal with grievous injuries that may haunt them for the rest of their days, and ultimately they just end up going completely insane or die, or both.
Did you mention arthritis?
That can come up if they live long enough. That doesn't always happen.
Okay.
Pulp heroes, on the other hand, are characters who can change the world, right? They have access to weird science, sometimes psychic powers, and those two powerful fists are always the action that's ready to save the day. Pulp Cthulhu is the book of getting your peanut butter in your chocolate, right? It's combining those two different tones into something that's bigger than either one was on its own.
I already love the art on that first page. Like, wow.
Oh, yeah. How can you not love Cthulhu going to town on the Statue of Liberty? I also wanted to mention that there are a lot of supplements and adventures already available for Pulp Cthulhu. This isn't a brand new book. It's been out for a little while. And we do have several campaigns and adventures already on the shelves up here at Immortals that go with this. And in fact, we got these books back in because I said, hey, Carlos, nobody's going to buy these other things if you don't have this book to go with them.
Amen. And I think we need a subcategory at this point. We've talked about Cthulhu like what? 7+ several times at this point, so
at least a few.
We need a subcategory right now.
I also want to point out that this is not a standalone book, right? So you do need the Call of Cthulhu core rule book in order to work with this. And this is intended to work with 7th edition, which is the current version of the game. Usually Call of Cthulhu by default is set in the 1920s. Now there is stuff from the 1890s and up through modern era and some other decades as well. And we also talked about Trail of Cthulhu that's set in the 30s. Pulp Cthulhu is explicitly set in the 30s, and that's because that is the era when pulps kind of became iconic. In order to enable characters to become pulp heroes, they had to change quite a few rules. That starts off with character creation. Archetypes in Pulp Cthulhu are more potent than your starting characters were in classic Call of Cthulhu. They just have more options. They start with more resources. Their attributes are higher. Your characteristics are typically expressed as a percentile rather than just as a 3d6 value.
Bigger muscles too, I'm assuming?
Absolutely. Or bigger brains.
Yeah.
Right? It depends on what your character's preferred resource is. They might even have more money. Characters also typically start with pulp talents. What's a pulp talent? It's kind of a minor superpower. So maybe blending in with shadows or being supernaturally convincing or having access to some kind of crazy new science are all kind of examples of that. In keeping with the pulps, there is a quick fire hero system out there for creating your character faster. And you have to say it like that. Quick fire hero.
Yeah, I was going to ask for a third time. Can we get a third time?
Quick fire hero. Oh, yeah. There you go. Okay. That's the stuff.
Cool.
I did mention that the setting had changed a bit into the 30s. Changes a little more than just that, though. Obviously, Call of Cthulhu is set in a world very similar to our own, just with more conspiracies and ancient mysteries and unholy deities trying to devour the planet. In Pulp Cthulhu, they add in a number of organizations, explicitly charitable or conspiratorial groups that are there to provide adventure hooks and really to sponsor adventurers to go out and embrace, just the life of adventure and to stop those dastardly fiends who would dabble with extra dimensional powers that could doom us all.
How dare they? And you know what I was going to ask? How many pulp talents were there?
I don't know off the top of my head. It was a reasonably thick chapter, though. So it's a pretty decent set of resources there, so that not all characters have to be similar. In fact, they could be pretty diverse.
That's fun, though. I think that's a good thing to incorporate.
There's also some other rules changes in there to make things much more heroic, adding luck points, changing combat to enable characters to be more successful, changing damage so that people you're fighting go down faster and your characters can sustain more damage. In addition, there's more explicit chances for characters to recover sanity, and some optional rules. One that I loved was alcohol-based sanity immunity.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how could you not love that?
Exactly.
You're literally buffing your character.
If your character is drunk enough, Cthulhu doesn't bother them. So they face supernatural horror and they just go, you're nothing real. I'll forget about you in the morning. In the meantime, I'm going to just deal with you.
Shots on me tonight, John.
Pulp insanity was also another element in here where characters could go nuts in story-based ways rather than maybe more horrifying, realistic ones. I thought that was really cool, and I thought that could be a great option to really roll into any Call of Cthulhu campaign where your notion of insanity might be a little less directly offensive.
Do you have like a brief example of that, of those?
Not off the top of my head. No, I just thought the way it was set up was, like I said, a little more story-based and where your character's going to have issues that are probably a bit more tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, that's better anyways, right?
Mm-hmm. There's whole sections then on pulp magic, psychic powers, and weird science so that your characters can have access to all those tools as well. And then there's a GM advice section, a guide to the 1930s, and a guide to creating your pulp villains. One of the things I really liked that just jumped out at me in the GM advice section was that they had a MacGuffin generator. So when you're starting your adventure, there's your hook. Here's your item that just draws the characters in and propels the story forward. In addition to that, there are 4 sample adventures in here, so you're set to go. Once you've got this in your Call of Cthulhu core book, you don't need to grab some other materials. You've got some adventures that are right there and ready and waiting for you. This is a 272-page book. It is $45. The internal layout does have some full color pieces. It also has some kind of sepia tone pieces, as is pretty common in 7th edition of Call of Cthulhu. And then generally a sepia tone throughout in the same kind of layout style that we've seen elsewhere.
I was going to say, the inside of the book looks very similar to the other Cthulhu books we've won over.
Yeah, it's kind of Chaosium style for 7th edition.
Respect.
Like I said, we've got a couple copies here on the shelves, along with several campaigns and source books that are really well suited to go with it. If you're interested, if you think this would be a fun time, stop in and take a look and check it out for yourself.
Beautifully said.
Till next time, good gaming, folks.
Later, guys.